All right, friends, welcome back again to another episode of Tactical Enlightenment. Our YouTube channel is dedicated to all things Bannerlord related and especially advanced battlefield command and tactics. We continue on with our Aserai Peasant Revolt here. We've made this foray into the north, and I would say it's been modestly successful, mostly just because the whole fucking kingdom is, the whole map is at war with us. You can see the Aserai, the Khuzait, the Northern Empire, and most of these kingdoms are much stronger than ours, right? You can see the total strength of these kingdoms. Almost, well, every single one of them was stronger than ours. And that includes the fact that we have minor clans helping us kind of on and off. Compared to our actual army, we're gigantically outnumbered, right? We have this army of 600 guys. I guess it's about 700 once everybody heals up. And the enemy literally seems like they have unending armies. There's an army of Khuzait attacking us up north. There's an army down here of Khuzait sieging Hubyar. Deep in our territory, Hubyar is effectively our capital. The Western Empire, we just destroyed a large force right here, and yet they're sieging Vostrom with another large force. And of course, there's Aserai forces mixed in as well. Now, our army remains this mix of militia, minor clans, bandits, looters, and then, of course, the units that we're introducing from the My Little Warband mod, right? These are custom units. And at this episode, at this point of this episode, I want to promise you fellas that in this episode today, probably towards the back, I will have a 10, 15, 20-minute section talking about these troops, and we will continue to talk about them both during this episode, but in later episodes. I will explain how some of the intricacies of these unique characters are going to play out in this campaign. Part of it is going to be discovery by experiment, right? These are highly unique units that I have created with the My Little Warband mod, and I will talk more about them. We continue to level up, and that is one of the net positives here. Even if we just tread water against our enemies here, and we did add Vostrom and Morania Castle, even if they take both of these back, we are still gaining, right? Our characters are gaining levels. Hugh the Hammer is getting stronger every battle. Our medicine skills are going up. And so there is a net positive effect, even if we lose both of these locations. Now, we're not going to lose Vostrom here, right? Because I plan on stalling here until morning and then slaughtering this Western Empire force. But we have to head south. Hubyard has almost 1,200 defenders. And almost before I could say anything else about it, there's an Aserai force sieging Razi. It really is amazing how many enemy forces we're being presented with. But as a tactician, it's almost like a wet dream, right? I have virtually unlimited customers lined up on the conveyor belt for you guys to watch us assault. Now we're almost healthy, almost all the way healed from battle. We've got a few companions, 60, 70%, but we're just going to have to fly into battle here. I can't afford just to sit here forever and heal. That is because, of course, we have multiple other places that require attention. We are, like I said before, we are busier than a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest. We are just running hither and thither, doing the very best we can. Now, I'm continuing to pile up troops on Hugh the Hammer every time we can before battle. We've got some of these Imperial troops sneaking through. If you don't know, we're not using Imperial troops this whole campaign, so I'm going to sort through a few of these armies quickly here before battle and just make sure that we don't have a bunch of like Imperial elite cataphracts slipping in. We've got a few units that are slipping in still because unfortunately our companions will recruit these guys, and so whenever you see these guys on our roster, it's accidental. I'm not trying to slip in some Imperial recruits into our army. Obviously, you guys understand that I'm playing this on Hell Mode difficulty, almost Hell Mode difficulty with one arm tied behind our back because we're not using any standard troops. We want to make sure we've got our glaive here, and I think we're set for battle here. We got a lot of injuries, but that just it is what it is, right? We will dump these Imperial forces and go into battle here. Now, there are parallels to this, to the French Revolution, right? And that's another thing that I will continue to sort of keep the narration lively with, are the parallels and discussions of rebellions throughout history, especially the French Revolution, and at points I will talk also about the Peasants' Revolution of the 1530s. Now, that was a really fascinating time of chaos in Europe, in Germany especially. Now, this battlefield, I've already fought here very recently, so I'm sort of reticent to fight here again, although I can take different tactical approaches and still make it interesting for you. But I think this is one of the options you have, right? We're attacking them. They're besieging. I can just say retreat. We don't lose any troops. And what I can do is I can approach this army from a different angle. And a lot of times it will give you a completely different spot on the battlefield. Depending on where you are, you can be in an entirely different battlefield, even though it's the same army. It's kind of a strange thing. But we'll try to get a different angle at them. I think this is identical. It does look identical. You know what? Fuck it. We'll just roll with this. Fuck it. Do it live, as Bill O'Reilly once said. Fucking dipshit. Anyways, we'll roll on here with the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th divisions being our primary normal divisions. So what I mean by that is infantry, cav, shock troops, and crossbow. The 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th going down the list is archers, skirmishers, horse archers, and then a mix in the 8th Corps. However, we don't really have shock troops yet, right? Our shock troop division is still developing. Our third division, shock troops are your two-handed weapon fellas. And I continue to intermix some of these captains, right? Some of these captains are better suited for better positions. That guy's a nice archer, gives us some perks. And I think we're ready to go here. Now, Western Empire forces, I didn't look real closely, but they're usually pretty balanced, right? They usually have a good amount of infantry, cavalry, and archers. And most of the time, they have a good amount of horse archers. So you have to prepare for these multiple different layers of threats. We are uphill, and we will use that to our advantage. And we have a fair amount of ranged units. In fact, 158 archers, 150. They have a ton of horse archers. So we're going to try to dispatch their horse archers first, and then figure out what to do with the rest of their units. Sometimes when the enemy has a lot of archers, like they have in this battle, they won't charge. So it'll be interesting to see what they do here. Of course, they'd be better off with all their units coming up aggressively. If they don't charge, they're going to get completely mauled here. So we will start spreading out units. I got to deal with these horse archers first. It's a lot, and a lot of them are Busolarii, or however you pronounce that shit. Fucking, they're tier 5 horse archer, right? They don't have any melee skills at all, but they're pretty damn nasty with their bows. They have lots of arrows, 2 different quivers. They're pretty formidable, especially to our army that by and large part is poorly armored. And a lot of our units don't even have shields. Now, the 2nd division is right in front of these guys. These guys are trapped. Look at them trying to get out, and they are getting smoked. We're losing some troops in there, but man, did they take a beating trying to get through that. And it's just a basic trap, right? As the horse archers move out, have a cav division and a shield wall right in front of them. Now, that gave you a good glance right there. I saw plenty of our lovely ladies, our furious housewives. They are wearing dresses. It's not your imagination. You didn't missee that. And that is because when I created these troops in this campaign with the My Little Warband mod, I wanted to make it fair. I didn't want us to have a bunch of elite juggernaut bandits. I wanted them to be tactically interesting. So just to give an example, and I promise we will spend an extended period of time in this episode talking about it, some of the philosophies. What I tried to do is accentuate the troops we already have. In other words, the bandits that we already have. 2 of the things that we're very much lacking are like a spear infantry, like a decent, quasi-decent tank that has a nice spear and a little bit of armor. And the other thing we're really lacking is shock troops, right? Two-handed weapon fellas. We don't even have hardly any units with a glaive, so quite a few of our bandit units actually have, not bandit units, but the My Little Warband units actually have two-handed weapons, sledgehammers and stuff like that. And then we have this rank of women that are called the Iron Maiden, right? And these women, they're tier 4, they have pretty good armor, very poor regular weapon skill, but they have good polearm skill, a big long spear and a shield. So it's going to be interesting to see with the spear and a shield if they can be solid defensive units, right? They will definitely be used defensively, hence the term, right? They're going to be an Iron Maiden, right? These gals are going to be holding a square and trying to survive the enemy onslaught. All these women wearing literally a dress, that have two-handed weapons. That's intentional as well. I wanted to see tactically what kind of things we could do with the whole division. At some point or other, we're going to have like 50 or 60 of these women with no armor. They're going to be wearing a dress and have a two-handed weapon. Some of them, of course, have very light leather armor or something like that. They're not all in a dress. One of the nice things about the My Little Warband mod is you can make 4 different sets of equipment. So some of them have like a leather jerkin or something like that and a little stupid-looking helm. Others have just a prom dress on, right? They literally have no armor at all. and it's going to be really interesting to see what kind of tactics I have to develop to keep these ladies alive and also help them devastate the enemy, right? They have, to compensate for that, they have good athleticism and two-handed skills. Now, what that means is that they're going to be really fast because they're not wearing any armor, right? It's not like they're weighed down by a bunch of chainmail and stuff like that. It's going to be fascinating to watch these very fast, lightly armored women and see what we can do with them in battle. Now, this lord's trapped. We're just going to smoke her, cut her down. But I'm watching for the main vanguard. So far, the enemy's content just sending heavy cavalry and horse archers, and it's been a slaughter. It's their main vanguard of about 200 infantry that I need to prepare a more concerted assault on, and they should be coming soon. In fact, it looks like they're starting to move up. A lot of times when the enemy has a good amount of archers like this battle, like I said, they will take a defensive approach, and that seems to be the case here, with the exception of their horse archers, which are being shredded, and this kind of unenthusiastic cav charge. The enemy hasn't sent up any normal units yet. So the first, 3rd, and 6th Division are our primary infantry divisions, and again, we will use those typically in a C formation. Your modified crane formation will be open up the center, pull back units at the center, suck them in, and then a multi-wave attack, hopefully, preferably with units behind them as well, so that they're getting shredded and hit from all 4 directions. And I think we're going to be able to do that here. By the enemy charging in with all their cavalry, these infantry now don't have a lot of support. About the only thing they're doing is their archers are shooting, and unfortunately, our units are not really well designed to handle archers, right? We do have a couple hundred infantry that have shields, but we have a lot of units that don't have a shield. I would say archers is probably what we're more vulnerable to. They are remaining defensive. This is fine with us, right? Like, we have a lot of ranged units, and I'm definitely okay just sparring with the enemy at range here, right? The enemy doesn't want to attack. That's fine, right? We're actually getting reinforcements because we've suffered some losses. Can pull the 2nd Corps back here, but we like a sparring match, right? This is good for us. We are uphill. We have a lot of units that have 2 bags of arrows, 2 quivers of arrows. And are kind of weak archers, but that's nice. And an extended ranged battle just means that those guys get to shoot for, 10 minutes. They're firing arrows down here, and it's a battle of attrition, right? We are very slowly weakening the enemy troops so that when they do come up, half the guys already have an arrow in the thigh, one in the left arm and stuff like that. They can't hold up their shield as well. Of course, that's not a thing in Bannerlord, but in real battle, it would be a major, it would be like the MMA fight's a major advantage where you just kick the guy in the knee so that late in the rounds in the MMA fight, the guy you're fighting, he has no power because his knee is so banged up, right? Like that's kind of what we're doing here. We are just weakening the enemy to the point when they do finally make an attack, it's going to collapse as fast as their horse archers. Yeah, they're just down there in a big square. That's fine. Look at our archers flying, right? We're still racking up kills. Vitally, that is one of the big things you want to do in a battle like this, and the reason is because you want them to break out of their formation. If we have to charge that, we're going to incur a lot of losses. If we can get them to charge us, it's game over. We're going to completely shred their 350, 400 units there. That is because, of course, we can move back, form into a kill box, and just totally embarrass and destroy their vanguard. Do something. You guys are fucking irritating my watchers. Get in here and charge. In fact, they just roared. You can hear them charge there. That's a perfect notification for us to start preparing a kill box. That is an effect that occurs with this mod. It's called Immersive Battlefields, right? And it tells you that the enemy's charging, right? It's a nice advantage. The enemy can't really sneak up on you as easily. All right, 215 archers, so they're still skirmishing with us. Their archers are middle tier, though. I don't see a whole line of Britannian Fiend Champs and stuff like that. A lot of our enemy kingdoms are getting pretty exhausted with this war, although as soon as I said that, I see a bunch of Fiend Champs. Probably shouldn't have said anything. All right, let's start pulling units back here. Enemy infantry is coming through, and they've come up a little bit hesitantly. which is great, right? That little hesitation is going to cost them dearly. It looks like they're catching up a few of our units, though mostly they're catching cavalry, right? The cavalry that's running around the battlefield and or screening is getting shredded. So standard tactics here. We're going to open up the center, at least standard tactics for our channel. The 7th Horse Archers get sent behind the enemy. The 8th Corps can join them. In the center here, we have the 2nd and 1st. On my side over here, we have the 6th Division, the 4th and the 3rd are on the other side. And we're just waiting for these guys to enter our jaws. We're basically like that crocodile sitting in the riverbed with its mouth open. And we're waiting for some pig or juicy morsel just to lay itself out in our jaws. Come on in. Right, the water's fine. So that far side gets told to charge the 7th and 8th coming behind the enemy. The 2nd Corps here just basically baiting, right? These are men on horses. We can move them back. The enemy thought they were going to get laid. Instead, they're going to get laid out. In come our 3rd Corps and 6th Corps on both flanks. Nobody's going to escape either. Look at this guy. He doesn't know what to do. I'll help you out, bud. You can just lay down. And they are going to get fucking swallowed, right? They've got cavalry coming in from behind here. A charge at the front. There are going to be some losses there, but they're just holding them in place so that the rest of us can come in here. And the screen fizzes green as their elite units just go down like a bitch. They've got a little pathetic cav wave here. And look at the death spam. I love seeing it. Imperial Elite Spearman got a kill. Killed Manavliaton. That's like my favorite shit right there. A looter killed so-and-so. Fucking great. All right, now we're going to press these bitches down here. Of course, the enemy in a situation like this is always trying to reform. Don't let them, right? Just fucking full court press, and it doesn't matter, right? These archers saw enough. They realize, the AI realizes they're without their supporting forces, and they sprint as fast as they can off the battlefield before they too get cut down. So in the future, we will probably skip some of these battles, right? I am going to show a handful of these battles, especially since we're still in the precarious stages of this revolt. But I don't think you guys need to see that kind of a massacre 100 times, especially in the same battlefield. So expect a little bit more editing down the road, similar to the Aserai campaign, right? We will skip battles where we have an 8 or 9 to 1 KDR. If you count injuries here, it's actually only about a 3 to 1 KDR. So a little bit sloppy, but horse archers, of course, usually you're going to score some damage on your army. And we have a bunch of looters. And speaking of more looters, we'll take all of these prisoners. 109, that's good news for us, right? Some of these guys we can shove into Vostrum and carry on down to Razi and down to Hubyar. Strap yourself in, fellas. This is not going to be a short episode. In fact, with at least some discussion about the My Little Warband mod, you can count on another hour plus episode here. It's kind of my comfort level, and also the editing software I has really likes episodes that are less than an hour and a half. It starts to really pressure the system. We'll skip some unnecessarily enthusiastic music. I'm going to be doing that from time to time. Sometimes I'll catch it and just edit it out so you don't see the guts of the system, right? Not everybody wants to meet the cow. They just want to eat the burger. Still looking for companions, but we've been maxed out for a little bit. I just almost always just take a look. Sometimes it's nice just to know these companions, so if you need a companion later on, you can find out where they are. If you don't meet them, then it doesn't necessarily tell you where they are. All right, so do some evening out of troops here. I'm trying to think of how much I want to tell you about this. Let's do some historical narration while we filter this in. Let's do a brief excerpt here while I even out these units and fill the garrison here at Vostrum, and talk about the German peasants' revolt of the 1530s. I've said before in other episodes that revolutions almost always have a radical reason for starting them, right? People don't just decide one day they're happy and revolt the next, right? That very rarely happens. Historically, revolts typically happen after a long period of oppression, right? Where people really feel like their rights are being exploited, or they've just been mistreated, or revolutions will happen like they did in the 1530s, and that had to do with dramatic change in religion. If you don't know anything about the wars of religion and the Reformation, you're going to get a couple minutes here as we traverse down to Razi. So most people are familiar with Martin Luther. Of course, in the United States, we have Martin Luther King. I'm almost certain he was named after the original Martin Luther, who was a priest. He was a German priest. Of course, Germany wasn't a country back then, but the states that now resemble Germany on a modern map, that is where Martin Luther was from. And he began his career sort of in the maelstrom of the Reformation. If you know nothing about the Reformation, again, this is going to be like a 2-minute segment on it as we head south. The Reformation was essentially a reaction by fundamentalists to the Catholic Church. People finally looking at the Catholic Church and all their opulence and saying, you know what, this is not right that these handful of bishops and archbishops and priests have all this wealth. There's no such thing as priests, not priests necessarily, but like the bishop and the pope in the Bible. They were reading their Bibles. Of course, the advent of the printing press, Gutenberg's printing press had a big part of this, right? Suddenly people were reading the Bible. They were interpreting it and saying, wait a minute, there's no pope in the Bible. There's no bishops. What is this shit? Why am I giving money to this Catholic Church? None of these things even are in the Bible. They were reading it, and a lot of the things that the Catholic Church did as far as ceremony, they weren't in the Bible. It was almost like their eyes were opened, and they were enraged that this Catholic Church had sort of corrupted the Christian religion. Now, before I infuriate the Catholics that are listening, understand that I am apolitical when it comes to religion. I generally think religion is a good tool for people to use to not kill thy neighbor. But I also am highly wary when people become fanaticized about their religion and start to try and tell other people what's up. So I'm not going to tell this from the perspective of a Protestant or a Catholic. I'm just trying to recap history. So ultimately, the Protestants, and that name came because they were protesting against the rules and bullshit that they saw was Catholic oppression. And these factions started to fight. And in the 1530s, it was really starting to manifest itself in Germany. These religions were fighting with each other. However, more than anything, because people were starting to question the Catholic Church, that whole notion of questioning your environment, questioning authority, questioning the king. Why the fuck do we give all our money to this guy so that he can have 9 mistresses and a pompous big castle, big palace while we're all poor? People started questioning the norm, and you combine that with religious fervor. A bunch of these early Protestants, Martin Luther and his band, and these peasants just fucking ran amok in the 1530s in the areas of the world we know as Germany. They started forming huge armies. They started sacking bishops' locations and stuff like that. Look at this shit. Morania Castle's being defended. There's no reason that Sturgia would defend that castle other than the fact that Sturgia and Khuzait are at war. So a Sturgian force is opportunistically attacking there. We like that. We will continue to recruit these bandits, and like I said, I will go into detail with these guys more later on. Obviously, we lost Razi there in the middle of my narration, so I'm searching for this punk-ass Aserai force that took Razi. That fell really fast, which is kind of alarming. But these things happen, right? They quickly put a good-sized garrison there. This is pretty distressful for us. It's 2 steps forward and 2 steps back so far in this campaign. So I don't want to go too much further into the German peasant revolt. It got chaotic, but that was just another instance where revolution occurred because the peasants felt oppressed. They felt that they were way too poor for the environment that they were in. But they also were getting notions from people who were writing and talking and preaching about how the Catholic Church was corrupt, and hence the people that were sort of supporting the Catholic Church, they were fucking illegitimate too. It was a huge period of overhaul, of societal overhaul in Germany and in Europe itself. Right? We will talk more about the Reformation when I get bits and pieces, little moments during this campaign to talk about it. From the Reformation comes a multitude of religions that we have today. And it affected almost all of Europe, right? And I don't mean, of course, parts of the Middle East, right? You got to draw a dividing line. I should say Christian Europe, right? It affected large parts of that. Most of Europe was Christian, and there was one Christian religion, with the exception of like the Albigensians and stuff like that. Most of Europe was Catholic, right? There was no other religion. In fact, in some places, if you tried to say you were anything but Catholic, you'd be killed, arrested, murdered, kicked out of your town, etc. Now we've got a nice little force here at Sahel Castle, so I'm just sort of stealing some of the troops here, making sure that we have a good-sized army as we continue, as we'll continue our narration here, continue this pursuit of both the Khuzait and hopefully the destruction of whatever insolent, the Khuzait, and hopefully whatever Aserai forces down here that took Razi, right? We've got some rats inside the house here. We need to close the door, coop up these rats, and then make sure that they're small enough, that defeatable enough, that we don't get attacked and mauled by these rats within our kingdom. I still have 2 or 3 castles like this throughout our campaign that have some elite troops, and this is one of the examples, right? This garrison here at Sahel had some pretty nice troops. Another thing that I'm really trying to do in this campaign is utilize these free looters, right? If you're not following that in 20 seconds, basically we have a mod loaded in combination with a bunch of skill perks that allow us to essentially get unlimited free looters, mounted ransackers, and these mounted pillagers. There are these bands of looters throughout the kingdom. This is created by a mod called Dangerous Bandits. And because of our skill set that our main character, Hugh the Hammer, has, he can recruit those virtually at will. And some of them are 300, 400, 500 large, right? Now, they're very weak troops. It's quantity over quality for sure. You see some of the Iron Maidens we are starting to recruit. And that is why, like I said, I will be talking about these later in this episode. But what's nice about these mounted pillagers, damn, this is just non-stop, man. There's an Aserai force here. Fuck you guys, right? These guys traveling to Jamaya Castle. Okay. Well, we're not going to be able to... Maybe we can't catch them. What do we got going on here at Hubyar? These enemy forces continue just to assault us from multiple different angles. 1,600 Khuzait. I think that is more pressing. It's actively being sieged down. Jamaya Castle is not being sieged down. So I think, the order of destruction here, it's going to have to be this Khuzait army first. Manchug is here. The leader of the Khuzait. Very much like the French Revolution, right? And what is the parallel to the French Revolution? I've mentioned it before. After the French Revolution really started to take off and things started to get chaotic, the different kings and queens all throughout Europe basically joined together, right? These kings and queens even tried to ally with the French royal family and say, hey, I can't tell what happened. I'm not sure if that Sturgeon force got defeated or broke off or something. They were trying to help up there. But these French forces all of a sudden were beset by enemies that didn't want the French Revolution to spread to their country. These other monarchs throughout Europe, they had their way and been in charge for literally centuries. And people who are in charge, who are threatened with all of a sudden the removal of that power, not just the removal of that power, but the potential removal of their head from their shoulders, are generally going to come in aggressively. So after the French Revolution, where they beheaded Louis XVI, violence was inevitable. And speaking of violence as being inevitable, this is an incredibly important battle. So I'm going to break off these little narrations that I'm doing here and try to come up with a plan. Of course, it's Khuzait, so tons of horse archers. I do have a nice little pocket to sit in. We can use these walls here on our left. Some people would say, don't fight at the back of the map. It's kind of cheese when fighting against the Khuzait. I agree, except when you're in this situation, right? We are already pressed against the back of the map. This battlefield, for whatever reason, is a very compacted, tight battlefield. A lot of battlefields are open, and there's a huge amount of space behind you. Here, there isn't, right? And the game is starting us at the back of the map virtually. So we're going to roll with this, right? I'm going to try to use that left side there to pen up their horse archers. We will try to position our archers on the opposite vector. That way, their horse archers are standing still, and our archers, crossbow 4th Division and 5th Corps, can strafe them, and they can't circle as well. They might be able to get all the way behind here, but again, we're at the back of the map. Ordinarily, I sort of consider that an exploit or poor sportsmanship, if such a thing is possible against the AI. Other guys, I'm sure, are like, I'll do it every time. You do you, right? I always tell fellas out there, when you're playing, don't listen to other people that are like, hey, that's an exploit. If you think it's fine, appropriate, fun, interesting, etc., if you think it's okay, basically, do what you want, right? Exploits are really up to everybody's own opinion on what qualifies and what doesn't. Ultimately, what we're trying to do in the entire game of Bannerlord is defeat the AI. We're trying to learn the AI's weaknesses and then exploit it, right? That's literally the term we use. So you can almost argue the whole game of Bannerlord is an exploit. Now, usually when people say exploits, they're referring to game mechanics that are not functioning optimally or working as intended, right? Where there's situations where you can like pull prisoners out of a dungeon and sell them to the prison ransomer, and you get a bunch of money, and then they're back in the dungeon, and you can just rinse and repeat and get endless money. That's pretty obviously just a bug. So I would define exploits in how I define them as bugs that should be fixed by the producers, the developers, but they haven't. Right? That to me, that's an exploit. Just defeating the AI is what it is. Right? We're forced to defeat the AI. I don't have players to fight, so we're forced to do the best we can here. Now we're holding this right side here and keeping an eye on the horse archers. Anytime you have heavy cavalry charging into your midst, that's the initial priority. I do have units in a shield wall on the other side sort of combating the horse archers. And we're just trying to clog the area up here with infantry so that exactly what's happening happens. Their cavalry's moving slowly, they're not doing a huge amount of damage, and our archers and skirmishers are working. Now their horse archers might slip behind us here. If they slip behind us, we will deal with that. That will be a major problem. In fact, let's go ahead and move a cav division preemptively behind there to counter that potential movement. Here, fortunately, again, the AI is just sending its units in headlong into our cav killing machine, right? This has just been an unmitigated disaster. They do have infantry in here that kind of snuck in on me, and so we'll have to deal with these guys. But it's not a very big force, of course, because it's Khuzait. Khuzait typically don't have large amounts of archers. It's bloody for sure. This is a very powerful force of Khuzait. I'm keeping an eye on their horse archers. Their horse archers are really penned over there, but I've been able to kind of ignore them. Right, they're not really shooting our guys, and our guys have a pretty damn good angle on them. We're ready in case they come around all the way around the side here. In fact, it occurs to me we should just close in on these guys. See how their horse archers are sort of penned up against the rocks there? That's a good opportunity for our infantry to fucking charge those guys and come to grips with them, right? Normally, horse archers move about quickly. Here, they're all stuck against the rocks like they're geologists studying which layer strata, the Mongols actually came in and whatnot. They all got their magnifying glasses out instead of actually trying to fight and use tactics. They seem a little lost. Now they're still dangerous, right? They're shooting a ton of arrows, so we want to do this tactically. Let's see what I want to do here. So it's a strange standoff. They're kind of pounding our troops at range, but a lot of their units can't shoot because they're trapped up against those rocks. So on one hand, I want to move in aggressively of infantry. On the other hand, I don't like our archers being exposed to. These archers are getting strafed. They have better horse archers than us. They have cons guards, right? So our archers are not going to match up well with them. I think it makes more sense to try to sort of squeeze them in here with cavalry. The cavalry will definitely be charged by the cons guards eventually. But moving infantry in front of them especially, they'll be able to fire javelins in there. They're all wearing, or a lot of those guys have shields, and that should be highly productive. We'll see. These cavalry are definitely going to take a beating here. I mean, I can just see the arrows strafing them. But I think if we put these guys in here to sort of spook the horse archers, keep them a little bit occupied, this has a good chance of paying some dividends. In fact, they are pulling out, and this is ideal, right? They're now charging out here against our cavalry. They're doing some damage, but man, are they being fucking pounded with arrows too on the way out. Right? These guys are definitely having the hurt mobile put on them. At the same time, man, these Khuzait units are tough no matter what, right? In melee, all of a sudden they pull out their glaive. They're killing our guys pretty readily. I'm not sure I don't think it makes sense, actually, for us to bring cavalry in here. You can see now our cavalry's penned up against our own infantry. I think this was a mistake. Obviously, even somebody with my experience, you make mistakes sometimes in unusual situations. It probably would be better just to clamp in with infantry and make it so they can't move. Them having to retreat like that sort of allowed them to cycle out and shoot our troops. And I think we took the worst of that exchange. So a mistake there, and that, you know, I'll highlight that. Fellows on the channel, you guys, most of you guys watching are usually kind of surprised or even a little giddy when I make mistakes, because of course with so much experience, it shows that Bannerlord is a very complex game. It shows that even experienced commanders like me are going to fuck up sometimes. I think it really illustrates a couple points. First, you guys know this is all of our combat's legit here, right? The guys that are showing their channel where they're trying to show how awesome they are and they never make a mistake. You know, you're going to see it all here. You're going to see us make mistakes, or my main character get killed or drop from his horse. But I think philosophically, there's a more important part to this. Sometimes in life, in Bannerlord, whatever it is, you need to recognize when you yourself made a mistake. I'm not going to say who, but there are some people in this world who don't believe in apologizing, who don't believe in personal growth or admitting they ever made a mistake. And I think this is a fatal personality flaw. I think one of the most important human attributes is being able to look at yourself in an introspective way. Introspective is basically looking at yourself closely from sort of a different person, from another perspective, from an outside perspective. Here we have trapped their horse archers against the wall, so now we're going to charge and split these guys. But I think it's vital to be able to recognize when you make a mistake and then to correct and learn from that mistake, right? That's one of the keys to life, is you're going to make mistakes, whether it's in relationships, in business, as an employee, as a friend even, right? Just as everything, as a husband, you're going to make mistakes, is to learn from those mistakes and try to figure out how you would approach those situations differently down the road. Now, the rest of their troops are moving up here. They're infantry and archers, right? Okay, so philosophical discussion is set down for the moment because it's getting interesting here. Their archers and infantry have moved up, but we've really cut their horse archers in half. That worked a lot better than that first attempt, basically bringing in infantry and shield wall and squares, splitting their archers against those rocks, and then, of course, letting our ranged units work. They still have a bunch of horse archers kind of penned against the rocks here, and these are medium quality horse archers. I think it makes sense now, again, to continue to press in here, use these infantry lines, and try to trap these guys. When it's all cons guards or whatever like it was earlier, although this is still, look at, there's a ton of cons guards in here. You know, this is appropriate. This is the con, right? The con is here, so of course he's going to have a bunch of guards, right? The cons guard, that's basically what we're fighting. So this is great. It's very bloody, right? This is, I don't want to say it's going to be a Pyrrhic victory if we win. I'll take any win at this stage of the campaign, right? Because this campaign's already extremely difficult. There are some battles you just can't expect to fight and have very few losses. We're fighting very high-level units here. We're fighting Manchuk, right? We're fighting the top Khuzait warlord, and appropriately, he has a very powerful army. We are winning, though, or at least we're starting to turn the tide here, right? They're running low on cons guards. Those that are left, it's come on, and cut them down and stuff like that. And I think very slowly we're bleeding this enemy force down. Now our infantry pushing out in the valley here, it kind of looks irretrievable. I had a few units there on charge just to push the Khuzait off of that ledge, and now we're in a little bit of a chaotic scrum. You're not devoid of tactics here. I could start moving up archers on our right flank, but their infantry line has hit our infantry line. These are situations sometimes where, keep it simple, stupid, right? Don't get too complex with your tactics here. If you have an advantage of death spam like this and the enemy's regrouping, just fucking bore in like a fucking crazy man. Just get aggressive. I mean, there are small things like I can definitely move infantry up in a shield wall here. We continue to bring archers up and to basically position them in a manner that'll be overall efficient. But this is really brawl to the finish here. The enemy is now spreading out into big, long archer lines. They're counter-firing. Our infantry are irreversibly charging here. This is one of those situations where you don't want to just pull back. All their archers are starting to spread out here. Of course, even if we pulled our infantry back. Now, some of their troops seem to be routing, so we're going to aggressively push in here. Maybe if enough of their forces take a beating here, they'll rout too. But we have a very violent battle here to end this. Monchug and his guys are fighting like wolves, and as they should. For Monchug will roleplay, knows what's going to happen if his army loses this battle. You guys watching may know what's going to happen as well. We are done playing nice, right? We are now revolutionists. Our kingdom is aware what happens to rebels, to revolters, to rebellions. If they're put down by these leaders, the result would be violent, and so appropriately, right? We're going to make sure that our preemptive answer is violence, right? Before our enemy, sorry, dude, before our enemy, has a chance to put us down violently. We are going to preempt that, right? We are going to root out this fucking aristocracy, root and branch, and take it down. So very violent battle here. Of course, a lot of those losses are definitely the militia. If you didn't catch, the militia sallied out there with us. So undoubtedly some of those losses are tier 2, tier 1 guys. But that was a very bloody battle. And even though it looks like a big gift, we can take these, these looter troops, but not much in the way of prisoners to restock our unit. The good thing is that we are about to start recruiting the My Little Warband unit. I will have a section, I'm looking down at the clock, I think probably right at the end of this episode, right? We've got a couple minutes here before I will wrap this up. And then I will talk at length about the rebel phalanx, the angry housewife, the desert rebel, etc. We will look at these units up a little closer. I will talk about some of the process of the My Little Warband and some of a sort of a strategic thought process that I've put into this, right? I wanted this to be interesting from a number of different perspectives, interesting from a role-playing perspective, but also I wanted this to be interesting tactically. And it'll be fun trying to intersperse these units. What's this? Monchug's army escaped? Fuck no. Let's see if we can catch them here. There's units all over the place. I'm not quite certain. It looks like one of them is right next to the city here, but we're going to try to... Yeah, you're caught, motherfucker. Come with us. And I don't think you want to talk too much shit to us there, Monchug, because your death is imminent. Just like Unquid, this campaign is getting bloody now. We are upping the stakes here. One of the reasons this ups the stakes is our enemies, if they ever defeat this army, are very likely to execute our main character. There he is right there, I think. Can't tell if that's Monchug or another lord, but we're going to cut down this fucking Khanate, and we will post his head on a pike. In the French Revolution, of course, there was an extraordinary amount of violence against the aristocracy. Oh shit, that guy did like half our health in one glaive swing. And there are many parts of the French Revolution that I abhor. I think it's just ghastly, some of the violence that occurred. Where the fuck is Monchug? I don't see him anywhere. Maybe he died before we got here. Usually you can recognize him by his helmet. I'm watching the death span. I don't see anybody killing him. I want to take him myself if I can, right? Just like Unquid, we want to drop this guy to the ground ourselves. I don't see him dying anywhere. In fact, I hear people yelling. That's got to be him, right? Form a line. I can hear him. Form a line. Oh, they're getting throttled in there. Iron Maiden. Monchug's killing people. Where is he? Well, I can't see him. He just got dropped. An insane ex-wife. That is indeed one of the troop names, is Insane Ex-Wife. I'm sure some of you guys can relate to that. I am happily married, so we're having a little fun with it. But Monchug is ours. Come with us. We've got designs for you, Monchug. In fact, we're going to go ahead and gather all the prisoners of your army, all of our troops. We will put them in a big half semicircle here, and you are the main event, right? Monchug is the main event here. We are going to get medieval, to quote Pulp Fiction. We've got some dented Khan's plate bracers here. We will chuck that on his corpse after he is beheaded. Monchug, the leader of the Khuzaits. I mean, think about what they're doing, right? This is very much like the Duke of Brunswick invading and sacking French cities. Oh shit, I think I fucked us here. I think I hit the reset button with, if you've ever done that before with loot, especially if you have custom weapons, it can take like a minute to reset here. So I will get back to my narration here. I don't need an email. Thanks, fucking thing. During the French Revolution, there were periods where non-French kingdoms marched onto French sovereignty with the notion that they were going to stop the revolution. And again, I've mentioned the Duke of Brunswick. Ironically, he's got my name. It was William something or other, some pompous something or other. He eventually got his, just like Monchug. He wasn't executed, but I think he was killed in the Battle of Jena Auerstadt against Napoleon. But these guys are getting what they deserve. And, of course, the Khuzait immediately elect a new leader. I think we have that guy. Hold on. They elected Ulusuma. I swear we took this guy prisoner. Let's see this shit. This will be hilarious. They just elected this guy, Khan. Maybe we don't have him. Oh, there he is. Ulusumai. This is their new Khan. Yeah, we'll talk to this guy a little bit. Hey, what you doing there, pompous dude? You're wearing a dress, I think. I've decided, you know what? I've decided you are free to go. Sort of. We're going to click a different button. You are free to go to the next world, friend. On to the next life for you. We're just going to go through and execute every single Khan. If they elect the next one in there in our army, we'll execute them as well. We're getting medieval in this campaign. Of course, it's in the medieval era here, so we're going to get violent in this campaign. We will keep it from being overt. We're not going to be like splattering blood against the wall ostentatiously. But rebellions are bloody inherently. These fucks want to kill us, to be sure, right? They will definitely put down our revolt. The Duke of Brunswick was threatening his exemplary violence. He threatened to burn Paris to the ground, this fucking guy. He basically said, if anybody harms the royal family, they will be punished severely. They will be put on a gibbet. They will be drawn and quartered. Treason laws. You fuck French people. Don't you touch, one of our fellow aristocracy. If you guys hurt him, there will be consequences. And the French people were like, oh, that's cute. Yeah, Louis XVI was beheaded last week. We're going to behead the Queen too. Fuck you. And that's how we're going to approach this campaign, with some violent fucking zeal and solidarity of the people here. As our relations scroll back into the Stone Age, all the minuses, and we don't give a fuck, right? Fuck them. If these minor clans leave us, we'll execute them too. We're entering the belligerent stage of this campaign. We're entering the stage where it's just pugnacious against everybody. France in 1793 was basically just extending their arms out with middle fingers to the borders, every direction. You can picture a Frenchman standing on the hill at Valmy with their arm extended and their finger up in the air to the aristocracy saying, come get it, you bitches. There's 20 million of us, and most of us are arming. And, of course, that is the effect of threatening an entire kingdom. Like I said before, when you make the gamble of threatening the French people and saying, look, if you support the revolution, we're going to burn down Paris, all you've really done with that remark is tell the people of Paris, you better fight for your lives. And that's exactly what they did, right? It was a tremendous blunder. This pompous Duke of Brunswick, William Frederick, something or other, basically gambled. We can use some of our extra food here at Razi. I've been stockpiling. Of course, we dragged 20,000 down from our last campaign. I'm going to dump it on the city here, restore the city here to bread and circuses, and then some, right? We're going to have a bunch of obese peasants eating all this carbs, and then we will proceed from there. I think, though, we're going to wrap this episode up. I am going to have a section here. I will probably just do our normal wrap up here, and then we'll have a little section and talk about some of the My Little Warband characters. But just like the French, right? Our little desert kingdom is now united. Anybody that tries to come in here and attack our cities, they will be beheaded, right? They will suffer the penalty of treason against our little kingdom here, right? We've written some new treason laws, and we're going to pursue that in future battles. So I won't leave the normal ending here. I will just say a little bit of fancy editing as we sell a bunch of worthless loot here for negative 1 million gold. You can see we have more gold than any single of these towns can even pay us for. I'm just lightening our load here. We will get into the My Little Warband troops now. All right, fellas, so we're going to talk a little bit about the My Little Warband mod, and we're going to talk about some of the units we're going to be using in this campaign. These are really interesting units as a whole. They are typically a little bit stronger from a skill perspective than their tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 comparisons, and I will do some comparisons here in this little short segment. But however, they have major negatives to that, right? We do not have a lot of good armor. What we're essentially role-playing here is that these units are people that have joined our rebellion. Maybe they're ex-soldiers or would-be soldiers that are thugs in the bandits and in the back streets of Ayakis and whatnot, and these guys have joined our rebellion, right? These are troop lines that we can recruit at cities, and this is what the interior guts of the system looks like, right? You have the ability to adjust everything from what armor all of these units get all the way to their weapon loadout, their throwing weapons, whether or not they have access to a pole arm, etc. And then you get to adjust their skills. Now, this is the only one I want you to notice. Points left. It says minus 90. You get a certain amount of points to put to the units depending on what tier they are, right? Tier 2 guy, of course, gets more points than a tier 1, etc. And there are settings you can adjust that essentially allow you the freedom or lack thereof to make these adjustments to these individual units, right? You can make them, theoretically, if you turn all the settings sort of to the easiest mode, what you can actually do is have these guys be stronger than like a tier 5 or tier 6 unit, right? You could literally give these guys 450 skill points and two-handed and then elite armor, and they would just crush everything on the battlefield, like an elite god, right? Now, we don't want to do that, right? We want these guys to have some individual character for this campaign, but we don't want them to be gods on the battlefield. So what I've done, most of them, the skill points left, see it says 0. I can change that setting. I can say take that off, and that'll essentially allow us to make these characters stronger than the normal comparison for a tier 2 unit here. However, we're going to leave that on for everybody except the tier 1 guy, which really doesn't matter. Now, there's other things you can adjust here, right? You can actually disable the overall cap, right? Which would allow you then to make these characters incredibly powerful. They could have, 300 points in two-hand and 380 in athleticism, etc. You see this is 9,800 points left. We're going to leave the cap on. In other words, they can only be so strong compared to other tier 2 units, but we're going to disable the skill level cap. And basically what I'm going to do that for is so that these guys can have a little bit better weapon skill in some cases than their tier 2 or tier 3 competitors. And with that, right, we are sacrificing some of their other skills. They may have less athleticism or throwing, but the most important thing that we're sacrificing is their equipment, right? Most of our bandits have stones instead of javelins, at least the lower level guys. The higher level ones have real javelins, but they also have very weak armor or no armor at all, as you shall see, especially with the women in our army. Now, the tier 2 units, right, these desert brawlers are actually pretty tough. Like if you go in here and you look at their stats, they're two-handed at 120, athleticism at 110. These guys compare favorably to the Mamluk axemen. They also have a sledgehammer, right? So we're going to have units knocking the enemy to the ground, which is great, right? This little perk where your troops club guys all over the place is going to be part of our army. I like that effect. I think there should be more hammer units in the game, and they have a couple of decent javelins, but their armor is not terrific. Same thing with our archer here. If you look at the equipment he actually has some good equipment. The tribesman bow is tier 4. He's only a tier 3 archer. And then he has these stacked bodkin arrows, which gives him lots of arrows, and they're pretty good damage, right? His overall skill set is pretty good. In fact, compared to other tier 3 archers, he's definitely better. Now, we don't have a tier 4 or a tier 5 archer in our army. So it was important to me to give us some kind of comparable archer, not better than the master archer. The master archer is clearly better with the higher level bow skill, higher level one-handed athleticism, and of course better armor. But because we don't have a tier 4 or a tier 5 archer, it was important for me to give at least some of our well, it's really our only archer, this desert sniper, a decent skill set. That said, he has poor armor, and he's still not as strong as a master archer, and of course he's nowhere near a Fiend champ. So we've got some decent archers. They're not great though, and they have no ability to upgrade. That also means they're going to have a higher casualty rate in battle, especially since they have weak armor. So the Desert Mauler, this guy's basically just a two-handed guy who compares favorably to a Mamluk guard. Again, with the exception of the armor, he has worse armor, but his skill set is actually stronger. He has better two-handed and better athleticism than the tier 4 Mamluk guard. So our tier 4 bandit, from a skill perspective, is better than a Mamluk guard. That said, he's wearing worse armor, right? He's got this little wolf's head on. Instead of a big brass helmet, he's got these wolves' head on, just like our main character, and they're using sledgehammers or this northern axe, right? Which is a pretty solid tier 4 or tier 5 weapon. So, again, the theme is that these guys are poorly armed compared to their opponents on the battlefield, but either equally skilled or slightly better skilled in some areas, right? Again, his two-handed skill is worse than a palace guard, but better than a Mamluk guard, and that's the tier 4 and tier 5. The same theme across the women, although the women have this very unique troop line. In fact, there's very little like this in the whole game. I'm experimenting with this. I have no idea how it's going to work out. They have decent weapon skill. It's not really great. But what they have is they have tremendous polearm skill, and these guys actually have armor. We're going to go ahead and say that these are the only women we could find some armor. They have, tier 4 armor, decent 35 armor quality suits, but compared to like an elite Vanguard Faris, obviously they pale in comparison. Now she has better polearm skill, incredibly, than the Vanguard Faris. Of course, she's not on a horse, so she's just going to be standing there poking people with their Drodzinic lances. She doesn't have ranged weapons, right? So these gals here, these Iron Maidens, are kind of going to be just bastions of strength. They're going to be hard to kill. And they're going to be very good against cavalry, which is something we really lack. But again, nothing like a tier 5 or tier 6 unit. Now, the Furious Housewife is another highly unique character for this campaign. You can see these gals are literally wearing a dress. They have no armor. Now, they have good two-handed skill, especially compared to other two-handed units. They're using a sledgehammer or like a tier 4 or tier 5 axe, but they're wearing a dress, a shawl. So this is literally like the scene in Fargo where the guy runs out and kills Steve Buscemi's character. These are just maniacs with an axe. Now, our looter line, we do have an actual looter line, right? An insane looter. These guys are basically slightly upgraded looters. The elite looter obviously is a little bit better, typically with two-handed weapons or a glaive. And again, the peak of it is the tier 4 Tasmanian Devil. And this guy's skill set is unlike anything really that's out there in Bannerlord. Probably the closest thing would be like a Volgier or a Consguard that's on foot. But again, the major disadvantage is armor, right? If you look at like a Volgier, I think our guys, they even have higher polearm than a Volgier, right? And wielding a glaive, that means that on average, these guys would be able to take out a tier 5 Volgier one-on-one. The problem with that, of course, is that for all their skill, they're wearing rags, right? All of these guys, I mean, just look at this shit. If half of your shirt is exposed, that's not good. In fact, this guy has no helmet at all, and he has dismal armor. So the same theme applies also to the noble line, if you can call it that, a rebel noble line. These guys have good skills to meet their opponents on battle, but they're very lightly armored. Our only mounted unit is this guy, the Desert Terror, and he's got a nice big camel to ride on. He's got a nice big glaive, but again, look at the armor. He's virtually naked. So a glaive, he's actually got a Jareed, and then I gave him a hooked javelin, so he has quite a few javelins. He's very similar actually to a Beni Zilal overall, right? He's got some polearm skill. Obviously the Vanguard Faris is superior. This is the tier 6 Aserai unit. I think he's better in every single way. Polearm, etc. Throwing. It looks like the Desert Terror is close in riding. In fact, he's got him pipped in riding, but obviously almost no armor on our desert terrors. So the theme for this whole series, again, just to reiterate it one more time, is this will give us some comparable warriors on the battlefield to the Aserai Vanguard Faris, to the Elite Cataphract and stuff like that. However, I think one-on-one they would lose because they don't have the armor. They're going to take massive damage in this campaign. They're going to have an interesting weapon skill set. This complements the troops that we already have, and eventually these guys will form the core of the army, because once we recruit enough of them, you know, we're going to have like 50 Iron Maidens in a square, and it's going to be really interesting tactically to see what we can do. We've got a ton of disadvantages in this campaign. I guess you could call this an advantage because we now have some comparable interesting troops to use. All right, so we're going to wrap this episode up. I appreciate you fellas. Please hit that like button, leave whatever comments you want. With all that said, fellas, I will see you guys next time.